Keek on the mic, keek on the mic, keek on the mic, keek on the mic. People, this the intro. Sacramento, California, born and raised. And Antelope is where I spend most of my days. Talk bad about my team, you must be a clown. This is Keek on the mic, so you know you better bear down. Bear down.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. Like always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms as well to stay connected with all Keek on the Mic news all off season long. All right, Bears fans, the moment you guys have been waiting for. The stage is set. The Chicago Bears now hold the #1 overall pick. They have $124 million in cap space, and it's now time to do the 2023 Chicago Bears mock offseason. I decided to do the mock offseason first before the mock draft because technically with the mock offseason, I'm doing not only the full offseason, right, the cuts, the re-signings, the free agency, but I'm also doing a draft as well. So it's kind of like I'm doing both in one. So I'm super excited to be back to do this video for you guys. Like always, I'm going to give you guys a full breakdown of what I think the Chicago Bears should do. And I just want to remind you guys, just because I come on here and do this mock offseason and these mock drafts doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. So try not to take it too personal when I give you guys my full list of the Chicago Bears 2023 mock offseason. So just like I said, I'm going to be doing cuts, I'm going to be doing re-signings, I'm going to be doing free agency signings, and I'm also going to be doing an NFL draft to complete this 2023 Chicago Bears mock offseason. Like always, as I'm going through this mock offseason, feel free to comment down below and let me know how you think I am doing, and also give me your input on what you would do if you were Ryan Poles and you had a whole bunch of resources to make the Chicago Bears a whole lot better. So here we go. Obviously, I'm not no mathematician. I know when I look it up online, it says the Bears will start out with $124 million in cap space. That's obviously before cuts. That's before anything. So we're going to start off here with the Bears starting at the cap at $124 million. So let's start off with cuts. You know, obviously there's a lot of cap casualties for the Chicago Bears they can consider, but obviously the first one on my list, the first person I would cut off the Chicago Bears roster is Al-Quadin Muhammad. Obviously, by cutting Muhammad, it would save $4 million. Obviously, he signed a 2-year, $8 million contract last offseason. And personally, he has been very underwhelming this season. He only had one sack, 29 tackles, and he generated 0 pressures this season. It seemed like it, by the way. Obviously, every time you turned on the tape of the Chicago Bears defense, he was absolutely had no production whatsoever on tape. Obviously, this is a guy that Eberflus brought over from the Colts. Last season, he had 6 sacks, so I expected a lot more from Muhammad. Obviously, Ryan Poles and Eberflus may give him another chance. Like I mentioned, he did sign a 2-year, $8 million deal, but obviously, he was non-existent in this Bears defense. And obviously, when you look at the Chicago Bears defense and the Chicago Bears defensive line, this is a unit that needs to get extremely better. If they do keep him, he's definitely not a starter for the Chicago Bears, right? So obviously, in my mock offseason, I decided to cut Muhammad and save $4 million. The next guy on my list as a cut candidate, and obviously this one is hard because he has been on the team for a long time and has been a consistent player for the Chicago Bears, and that is Cody Whitehair. And obviously this has been a conversation amongst Bears fans leading up to the offseason. Obviously, if you cut Cody Whitehair post June 1st or post June 1st cut, you save $10 million in cap space. Whitehair has been on the Bears for 7 seasons and has been a pretty serviceable guard for the Chicago Bears for all those years. But unfortunately, he is 31 and has dealt with some injuries this season, only played 12 games this season. And it's not going to be easy, but these are the type of guys that you have to cut. Obviously, Ryan Poles is trying to build this offensive line for the Chicago Bears with a lot of young talent that they can develop. And obviously Cody Whitehair, especially when you can save $10 million, is definitely a guy that I can see being cut for the Chicago Bears this offseason. Obviously, there's a couple other guys that I can think of. I didn't add them to this list, but there is other guys like maybe like Eddie Jackson. You can probably save like $13 million there if you cut Eddie Jackson. That's another guy that some Bears fans are kind of going back and forth about. But at the moment, for my 2023 Chicago Bears mock offseason, I have the Chicago Bears cutting Al-Quadin Muhammad and Cody Whitehair. Before I move forward to the Chicago Bears re-signings, who I think they should re-sign, their own free agents, who do you guys think the Chicago Bears should cut this offseason? Let me know down below in the comment section. So moving on. So after the cuts of Cody Whitehair and Al-Quadin Muhammad, that will put the Bears at around $138 million in cap space. So obviously a whole lot of money, not to only re-sign your free agents, but to really attack free agency hard. So we're sitting at $138 million in cap space now. Now I'm going to go over the players I would re-sign that are currently on the Chicago Bears roster. Obviously, Ryan Poles already got started by re-signing Equanimeous St. Brown to a 1-year, $1.25 million deal. So he is coming back for another year to play in Chicago. But I'm not going to go in deep detail of these guys. Maybe a couple of them I'll go in deep detail. But these are the guys that I would re-sign for the Chicago Bears. Fullback Kari Blasingame on a 1-year, $1.08 million deal. Wide receiver N'Keal Harry on a 1-year deal. D tackle Armin Watts on a 1-year deal. Linebacker Matthew Adams on a 1-year deal. Linebacker Nicholas Morrow on a 2-year, $10 million deal. Safety DeAndre Houston Carson on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. Long snapper Patrick Sales on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. Linebacker Joe Thomas on a 1-year, $1.08 million deal. Cornerback Josh Blackwell on an ERFA deal for a $750,000. And then one guy that I am going to re-sign, and I hope you guys will agree with me, is running back David Montgomery on a 3-year, $24 million deal, which would pay David Montgomery $8 million a year. Obviously, I know there's been a lot of talks about Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, all these other guys that are hitting free agency in the running back market. But David Montgomery has been highly productive ever since he has gotten to Chicago a couple of years ago. And even though the offensive line has been terrible the last couple of years, David Montgomery has consistently had 800 or more yards in every single season as a Chicago Bear. And obviously this is a guy that I know that Ryan Poles likes, that Matt Eberflus likes. He fits what it means to be a Chicago Bear. He plays hard, and once again, he is productive, and that's why I'm going to reward David Montgomery with a 3-year, $24 million deal. So after we sign all those guys, the Bears cap is now at $115 million. So the Chicago Bears should still have $115 million to spend after re-signing some of the guys that they want to retain in Chicago. So now here comes the fun part. Adding new talent to the Chicago Bears roster. And obviously the Chicago Bears have a whole lot of holes to fill to make this team better. So this is going to be a lot of fun. My first signing, and obviously I truly feel, I'm going to make this known right now, I feel that the Bears will probably miss out on Daron Payne. That is a guy that I can see the Washington Commanders possibly re-signing or maybe even franchise tagging. We will wait and see. So I personally think that the Chicago Bears do miss out on Daron Payne. So my prize free agent for the Chicago Bears in 2023 is offensive tackle Orlando Brown Jr., and I'm going to give him a 5-year, $122.5 million contract, which is around $24.5 million per year. I believe when the Kansas City Chiefs offered him a contract before the season started, I think it was around like $23.1 million per year. He declined it. So I can definitely see Orlando Brown Jr. wanting either $24.5 to $25 million a year. And I know it seems like a big penny to spend, but obviously when you look at a guy like Orlando Brown Jr., right? When you look at the position he plays, it's at a premium position, right? And I know a lot of people like what Braxton Jones did this year, and I do too. But I personally feel that adding a guy like Orlando Brown Jr. would be huge for the Chicago Bears offensive line. I know I mentioned it in my video about my top free agents a couple of videos ago. And obviously Orlando Brown Jr. has been one of my top free agents for a while now. Obviously there is that connection with Ryan Poles coming from Kansas City, so he knows a lot about Orlando Brown Jr. This is a guy that has played at a high level for his season for a couple seasons in the NFL. This is a guy that can not only play left tackle, but can also play right tackle. But my vision about bringing Orlando Brown Jr. to Chicago is to make him the star starting left tackle for the Chicago Bears, which means you put Braxton Jones at right tackle, and now you have your tackles figured out. This is the offensive line that gave up 55 sacks. 55 sacks. This is a unit that needs to get a whole lot better. And I truly feel by making a big move like this for a premium player like Orlando Brown Jr., it will really help keep Justin Fields upright as we look towards next season. The next guy on my list, and obviously this is a guy that I also really enjoy watching, I really like watching, is linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. And I want to give him a 4-year, $44 million deal, which is $11 million per year. Obviously, you guys all saw that Roquan Smith signed his extension for 5 years, $100 million, which is $20 million per year. Tremaine Edmunds will not cost that much, and I feel like he can be just as productive as Roquan Smith. Obviously, we already have Jack Sanborn. I re-signed Nicholas Morrow to a 2-year, $10 million deal, right? So I can truly see the Chicago Bears adding one more, or they need to add one more solid linebacker in Tremaine Edmunds. Obviously, when you watch Tremaine Edmunds play, he's fast, he's physical, he's all over the place. He's an absolutely tackling machine. And obviously, the Bears are in desperate need to pair one more linebacker, a solid linebacker like Tremaine Edmunds, with a guy like Jack Sanborn that popped up the scene, like a guy like Nicholas Morrow, right? So when you look at the linebacker room, it is almost complete, but adding a guy like Tremaine Edmunds would definitely complete that room for the Chicago Bears. The next guy that I'm signing for the Chicago Bears in this 2023 mock offseason is edge Yannick Ngakoue to a 2-year, $20 million deal. That's $10 million per year. And obviously, like I said, this guy is productive. Everywhere he goes, he is productive. He generates pressure, he gets to the quarterbacks, and he gets sacks. Obviously, like I mentioned, I cut Al-Quadin Muhammad, so I do need to replace him. And obviously, this is a major upgrade over a guy like Muhammad. And when you look at the Chicago Bears, they need to build the trenches, not only on the offensive line, but the defense line as well. Adding a guy like Yannick Ngakoue will go a long way if making the edge presence a whole lot better for the Chicago Bears defense. The next guy on my list is center Ethan Posick. I want to sign him to a 4-year, $28.8 million deal, which is $7.2 million per year. Obviously, Ethan Posick came on the scene for the Cleveland Browns. I did mention that he had a couple of stints with the Seattle Seahawks that didn't work out. Found a home in Cleveland after they cut J.C. Tretter, and he has had an outstanding year. I think he dealt with some injuries, but did an excellent job with Cleveland. And obviously, like I mentioned, we cannot go into next season with Lucas Patrick or Sam Mustipher as the starting center for the Chicago Bears. So obviously, adding interior help to the Chicago Bears line is going to be absolutely vital for Ryan Poles to address this offseason. I feel like Ethan Posick would address a huge need for that Chicago Bears offensive line. The next signing, obviously, we missed out on Deron Payne, but it's okay because I go out and get defensive tackle Draymond Jones and sign him to a 3-year, $28 million deal, which is $7.2 million per year. And obviously, I've told you guys this before, I absolutely love Draymond Jones. And obviously, this is a huge consolation prize, especially when you're missing out on a guy like Deron Payne. But let me tell you, Draymond Jones is absolutely no scrub. This is a guy that's only 25 years old, 6'3", 281 pounds. And like I said, Jones is quietly has been one of the best interior pass rushers in the NFL in the past 3 seasons. Like I mentioned, he has 18 and a half sacks and 32 quarterback hits. This is a guy that knows how to get to the quarterback. And like I mentioned before, like we all know already, in order for this Matt Eberflus defense to work, we need that 3 technique defensive lineman that can get to the quarterback, generate pressure on a consistent basis. And a guy like Draymond Jones would definitely do that for the Chicago Bears. And adding him to the mix with a guy like Justin Jones that had a pretty good season for the Chicago Bears, I think it's a good start in making this defensive line a whole lot better for the Chicago Bears. Another guy that's kind of on my radar, and I know you guys may kind of scratch your head at this one, but I think it kind of makes a lot of sense, is signing wide receiver Alan Lazard to a 2-year, $10 million deal, which is $5 million per year, right? When you look at Alan Lazard, he's 27 years old, stands at 6'5", 227 pounds, had a season high in catches at 60 catches, a career high in yards with 788 yards. Had 6 touchdowns to go with those accomplishments. And this is a guy that's obviously coming from Green Bay, so he knows the Luke Getsy scheme. And obviously, this is the offense that we can never add enough talent for Justin Fields. So obviously, this is a big target for Justin Fields. And obviously, when you look at Alan Lazard, he's unhappy in Green Bay right now. Obviously, after they got eliminated by the Detroit Lions, he went on an interview and stressed his frustration of not getting a contract done. So that could be some added benefit for him to come to Chicago and absolutely torch Green Bay for the next 2 seasons, right? So obviously, this is the idea that I had for a couple of weeks, but once I found out that Alan Lazard was actually a free agent, I feel like it makes too much sense just because we understand that he can fit right in and play. Will he be productive? I'm not sure. But obviously, when you look at Alan Lazard, it can't get any worse than a guy like Dante Pettis or Nasimba Webster, right? So this is a guy that can come in and probably produce and know the offense and know the scheme. So it wouldn't be a bad option for the Chicago Bears to consider adding a guy like Alan Lazard to the Chicago Bears. The last guy that I would want to sign is guard Nate Davis to a 3-year, $22.4 million deal, which is $7.4 million per year. He's 6'3", 360 pounds, 26 years old, and he is coming off of IR due to an ankle injury this year. But before that ankle injury, he was an absolute solid guard for the Tennessee Titans. And obviously the Tennessee Titans have had a lot of issues this year, especially when you look at their offensive line. But he was obviously one of the bright spots. He was solid as a pass protector. He was solid as a run blocker as well. And obviously when you look at the Chicago Bears offseason, especially my Chicago Bears mock offseason, I did cut Cody Whitehair, so that is a position that we need to address to replace Cody Whitehair. And this is a guy that can easily come in and be an instant upgrade and starter for the Chicago Bears, hopefully revamped Chicago Bears offensive line. So after all the signings, the Chicago Bears will still be sitting at $43 million in cap space before we head into the NFL draft. But obviously, when I look at it, I feel like I added some great talent to the roster that can help improve this football team in some key areas, especially when you're looking at the trenches, the offensive line, defensive line, which is key for the Chicago Bears to build up this offseason. So I felt like I did a good job at improving the Chicago Bears football team with my free agency signings. Before I move on to the NFL draft in my 2023 Bears mock offseason, how do you guys feel about my free agency signings? Let me know down below in the comment section. What is one or a couple free agents that you really want to see the Chicago Bears sign this offseason? So here we go. Now we're going to the fun part, the NFL draft. Obviously, this NFL draft got a whole lot more interesting due to the fact that the Chicago Bears now hold the #1 overall pick. We have a whole lot of power in this NFL draft due to the fact that we now hold the biggest pick in the NFL draft, which is the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft. So before I go any further, before I start my last part of this 2023 Chicago Bears mock offseason with my NFL draft, do you guys want the Chicago Bears to stay put and select Will Anderson Jr. or Jalen Carter? Or do you think the Chicago Bears should trade back and add more draft capital to fill all their holes that they have on this roster? Let me know down below in the comment section. So here we go, the NFL draft. I instantly trade back. I'm an advocate for trading back of the #1 overall pick. We don't really need to pick #1 overall. I feel like when you have the #1 overall pick, especially when you already have a quarterback in Justin Fields, a franchise quarterback at that, you have the ability to trade down and add more draft capital. And I have a feeling that that's exactly what Ryan Poles will do. So I have the Bears trading the #1 overall pick to the Houston Texans and receiving pick #2 and pick #12. I just find that trade back option really attractive, and I think the Houston Texans will do it just because they know that there's teams like the Colts, like the Panthers, that may threaten to trade past them to get one of the quarterbacks that the Texans may want. Obviously, I feel like the Chicago Bears, if the Houston Texans are desperate enough, could possibly get more than just number 2 overall, number 12 overall. Obviously, the Houston Texans obviously also hold number 33 overall. So I would be intrigued to see if Houston would be willing to give up that early second as well. But in this scenario, I just have the Bears receiving pick number 2 and pick number 12, which is absolutely huge, because now you have 2 first-round picks early in this 2023 NFL draft. So now the Bears are at pick number 2 overall in the 2023 NFL draft, and I decided to trade back again, which is obviously a realistic scenario because we understand that there's a lot of teams that want to trade up and get the quarterback, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. So obviously it's very realistic. I have the Bears trading back once again to number 4 with the Indianapolis Colts, and they also get pick number 35 in round 2, a 2024 second round pick. And check this out, Bears fans. I have also the Colts trading defensive tackle DeForest Buckner to the Chicago Bears. And with all that, we only give up our second overall pick. And I know you guys may be thinking, well, Keek, you really think there's a chance to get DeForest Buckner? I absolutely do. I look at the Indianapolis Colts, and obviously they're a team that's definitely in a transition. They're trying to get their franchise quarterback. So that possibly means that they could possibly be in a rebuild. They're about to hire a new coach, right? So there is a possibility that they may be looking to get rid of players with big contracts. And obviously DeForest Buckner is one of those guys. Obviously adding a guy like DeForest Buckner comes with the $18.9 million cap hit. He's going to be 29 years old next season. Obviously he knows the defensive system because of Matt Eberflus, so it's absolutely perfect fit. And when you look at DeForest Buckner, he is an absolute game changer and would be an absolute game changer for the Chicago Bears offensive line. Over the past 5 seasons, he has 44 sacks and 96 hits on the quarterback. It is a match made in heaven. Obviously, I know a lot of people play, well, Keek, he's 29 years old. He comes on an $18.9 million cap hit, right? And I know it may seem a lot, but when you have a guy that can make a difference, like DeForest Buckner, I think you would take that opportunity, especially when you realize that you can get number 4 overall, the 35th pick, which is in round 2 in the NFL draft, and also an extra second for next year. I think that would be a massive haul and a massive move for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears. Not only get a massive haul of picks, but to get a player that can come in and make this defensive line for the Chicago Bears instantly better. And also, when you look at DeForest Buckner and his age, I truly feel that he still has another good 3-4 seasons left in the tank to really be a dominant player in the NFL. And he can also be a perfect bridge option until you can try to really find a guy to replace him in the next 4 seasons when, he does finally hang up the cleats. But I think this would be a massive haul for the Chicago Bears. And I think it's definitely something that could be possible for the Bears to achieve in the NFL draft. So finally, the Bears, I'm done trading, and we have round 1, pick number 4 overall. I run to the podium, and Bears fans, I mean run to the podium, because still on the board is Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson Jr. And obviously the only threat that I can see with Will Anderson Jr., meaning a team that can possibly take him by us trading down, is possibly the Arizona Cardinals. But I have the Arizona Cardinals taking Jalen Carter. I feel like they just would value Jalen Carter more. I think they would want a D tackle more than Will Anderson Jr., which is surprising. But obviously, if Will Anderson Jr. is still there at 4th overall, which is truly a possibility, especially with all the teams trying to trade up for a quarterback, that would be an absolute dream scenario, right? You got Draymond Jones, you add DeForest Buckner, you got Yannick Ngakoue, and now you add a guy like Will Anderson Jr., and obviously now your defensive line is definitely revamped and should be a whole lot better than last year. Obviously, when you look at Will Anderson Jr., he's 6'4", 235 pounds, and obviously, to me personally, Will Anderson is the best prospect in this year's NFL draft. He has exceptional athleticism, power, and hand usage. He is a devastating force around the edge and when attacking the interior. And in 3 seasons at Alabama, he has totaled 34 and a half sacks, along with 204 total tackles, with 17 and a half of those sacks and 101 of those tackles coming in one season during his 2021 campaign where he went absolutely nuts. Will Anderson Jr., Bears fans, is a generational talent that would instantly improve the Bears defensive line right away. He is a game changer, a guy that when you add him, he can make your defense, your team better right away. This is the safest and smartest pick for the Chicago Bears to make in round one. Obviously, I traded back and now with the Houston Texans, and I now also have pick number 12 in the NFL draft. And I run back to the podium and I take wide receiver Jordan Addison out of USC. I've loved Addison ever since he played in Pittsburgh. Obviously, he transferred to USC. And this is a guy that just pops off the tape. To me, he is one of the best receivers in this year's draft. He stands at 6 foot, 175 pounds. And I know a lot of people may say, well, Keek, he's kind of a small guy, but that 175 pounds, what I hear is just all muscle. He's an absolute rock. Addison has elite athletic ability and deep speed, along with outstanding cutting ability, good hands, and toughness. Has the ability to consistently create separation and get open for his quarterback. He does a nice job locating deep balls and is a legitimate deep threat. And obviously, when you look at Addison, I told you I was a big fan ever since he was at Pitt. Obviously, he had 100 catches, 1,593 yards, 17 touchdowns in 2021 at Pittsburgh, then transferred to USC in 2022 and had 59 catches, 875 yards, and 8 touchdowns. This guy is productive. He's a good route runner. He gets open, and he's a quarterback's best friend. And obviously, that's what Justin Fields needs. He needs a guy that can consistently get open. That was the main issue with the Chicago Bears receivers this year. They didn't get enough separation. They didn't get open. They didn't run good enough routes. They weren't clutch. They weren't Justin Fields' best friend. He didn't have no safety blanket. When you look at Jordan Addison, he would do just that for Justin Fields and then some. Obviously, when we look at Jordan Addison, I don't anticipate him playing on the outside a lot in the NFL. He will be primarily in the slot. I think that's the one knack on him. But overall, I can see him being probably one of the more dominant slots in the NFL right away and being pretty productive right away in the NFL. And obviously, the Chicago Bears need to add more playmakers around Justin Fields. And this is definitely a guy I can see the Bears targeting in the 2023 NFL draft. So in round 2, pick 35, obviously we did trade back and we added a second round pick via the Indianapolis Colts. I select guard Andrew Voorhees out of USC. He's 6'6", 320 pounds. Voorhees burst off the line of scrimmage and has good burst off the line of scrimmage and has tremendous natural strength and power. And obviously, this is a guy that can just straight out dominate out of the point of attack in the run game and uses his natural, powerful lower body to hold up against the rush and knock defenders back at the point of attack. Obviously, Voorhees is a dependable and consistent presence that has no problems putting defenders on their back. So this is a guy that's a mauler. He fits that Ryan Poles mentality of that nasty edge. I know that we added a guy like Nate Davis, but obviously you can never have enough offensive linemen. And this is a team that we need to consistently build offensive line. We need to consistently build the defense line. It's going to be about building the trenches with nasty, violent players. And Andrew Voorhees definitely fits that bill for the Chicago Bears. With our next second round pick, obviously we would now have 2 second round picks. Pick number 55, I have the Chicago Bears selecting cornerback Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. I have no doubt in my mind that Ryan Poles would not be afraid to add another cornerback early. Obviously, he values that as a premium position, which cornerback is a very premium position in the NFL. And obviously, I mentioned in past podcasts that the Chicago Bears are probably one good cornerback away from really completing that secondary room. Obviously, he did a great job with adding Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. You're going to have Jalen Johnson coming back. I feel like Kendall Vildor had a better year. But obviously, I don't really value him as a starter, but I feel like he is a solid backup option. Obviously, Jalen Jones played well. Joshua Blackwell played well. So there's a lot of young pieces on this secondary that they can build with. But I can definitely see the Chicago Bears adding more. And Emmanuel Forbes would be a good option to consider early in the second round. So obviously, he's 6 foot. 181 pounds. So even at 6'4", possesses good length and leaping ability that allows him to make a lot of plays. Forbes has solid ball skills and shows good instincts, especially in zone coverage. He's really good, pretty good at tracking the ball and gets his head around even when he's in a trailing position. So that's pretty good, especially when you in terms of NFL. I would like to see him get better against the run. That's kind of like the one knack against him, that sometimes he often gets out muscled against physical outside receivers. So maybe once he gets to the NFL, he'll get a little bit stronger, add a little bit more muscle on him, and definitely get better against run. But like I said, I wouldn't surprise me at all if Ryan Poles, either in free agency or the draft, adds to the cornerback room once more for the Chicago Bears. So now we're moving on to round 3, pick number 64 for the Chicago Bears. And I have them selecting center John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. He's 6'4", 320 pounds. I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. The Chicago Bears cannot go into next season with either Lucas Patrick or Sam Musfer as the starter. They're not dependable. Obviously, when you look at Lucas Patrick, he's been injured. Sam Musfer, to me, is probably just a career backup at center. So we need to upgrade at the position. Schmitz is, once again, he's an absolute mauler. He fits the bill of what Ryan Poles wants in his offensive lineman. He's a mauler in the run game, constantly playing with a nasty edge and constantly putting defenders in the dirt. And obviously, when you look at the center position, that's what we need. There's been too many times with Sam Musfer getting pushed back into his ass. No, we need our center to blow that nose tackle up and put his ass in the dirt. And that's what John Michael Schmitz has done on a consistent basis at Minnesota with his nasty edge. He explodes off the line of scrimmage and consistently gets out to the second level to do damage, which is absolutely vital in the offense line. Allowing your offense lineman to get to the second level and finishing blocks is something that I would love to see from this offensive line in the future. To me, he still needs to, some more developing as a pass protector. And at times, he has issues against speed to power rushers and pass protection. So that's something that you can bring him in. I don't anticipate him starting right away, obviously, because we signed Ethan Posick in free agency. But this is definitely a guy that can definitely be there. Great value pick in round 3, pick 64. Come in, groom him in the right way, and maybe hopefully be the future at center for the Chicago Bears. In round 4, pick 96, and this is great value, Bears fans. This is probably one of my favorite picks. When I was doing my mock off seasons, I was ecstatic to find him there still. This would be great value, and that's wide receiver Zay Flowers out of Boston College. He's 5'10", 177 pounds. So yes, he is a smaller guy. And like I said, this would be great value pick for the Chicago Bears in round 4. This is a guy that is popping off the scene as the draft gets closer, a guy that is starting to become a lot of NFL teams' favorites, right? A guy that's flying up draft boards, right? And the first thing you see with Flowers is his speed. He has effortlessly accelerating away from defenders with ease. When you put on the tape, he just makes it look easy. He's just fast, right? He hasn't run the 40 yet, but there's a lot of anticipation for him to run the 40 at the combine. He's probably going to be a 4.3 guy easily. And like I said, the first thing you see with Flowers is his speed. He is electric in space and has dynamic run after the catch ability. This season at Boston College, he put up great numbers: 78 catches, 1,079 yards, and 12 touchdowns. And when you look at Zay Flowers, and this is just me personally, when I look at Zay Flowers and I watch him on tape, he reminds me of a Tyler Lockett type of guy, which to me is a great comparison, because Tyler Lockett has been absolutely nails for the Seattle Seahawks for years, especially when you look what Tyler Lockett was doing when Russell Wilson was in Seattle. He's still doing that with Geno Smith. So obviously that's a great comparison. And obviously this could be a massive steal if Zay Flowers gets to round 4. I don't anticipate him getting to round 4. But if he does get to round 4, I would run to the podium and add another receiver and Zay Flowers to give Justin Fields yet another weapon. Moving on to round 5 now, pick 128. I have the Chicago Bears selecting safety Jalen Catalon out of Arkansas. He's 5'10", 201 pounds. Catalan is a twitchy player with good instincts and anticipation. He reads and reacts with discipline, which is vital in Matt Eberflus defense. He likes players with discipline. He is solid in coverage and out muscles receivers for the ball. So he's a physical safety, which I also like. I could see maybe pairing him with Jaquan Brisker. Obviously, Jaquan Brisker is also a physical safety, so it'd be kind of cool to see these two play side by side. And along with all this, he's a solid tackler that won't get run through by running backs or maybe even the bigger receivers, which I like. So yeah, he's 5'10", but he's 201 pounds. He's built, ready for the NFL. And I think this would be a solid pick in round 5 for the Chicago Bears. We have 2 round 5 picks. So moving on to my next round 5 pick, at pick number 141, out of Chicago Bears, selecting linebacker Owen Popoe out of Auburn. He's 6'1", 225 pounds. Like I said, the Chicago Bears will probably add a couple more linebackers to that room to complete that room, much like the secondary. It's almost there, but I definitely still need to add to it. Popoe may not be, when you look at him, he may not be the biggest or strongest linebacker in this year's draft, but he does flash elite playmaking ability, speed, and range that NFL teams love. And obviously, when you think about Matt Eberflus, he always brings up the word range. He loves players that have good range when they play football. So obviously, this is a guy that Matt Eberflus would probably love. I want to see him play up to his athletic traits a little bit more. And maybe once he gets to NFL, and the linebacker coaches get a hold of him and they help him develop those skills, the sky's the limit for this kid, right? And obviously, when he ends up in a scheme that plays to his strengths, he has a lot of great potential. So obviously, that's why I would be intrigued for the Chicago Bears to pick up a guy like Owen Popoe, because that's what they want to do. They want to build through the NFL draft. They want to develop their young talent. So this would be the perfect prospect to bring in, develop the right way, and he could potentially be a stud in the NFL for years to come. Round 6, pick 160 out of Chicago Bears, taking tackle Robert Scott Jr. out of Florida State. He's 6'5", 315 pounds. Once again, once you get to these later rounds, obviously we're still trying to build the trenches. You can never get enough offensive linemen. You can never get enough defensive linemen. You can never get enough cornerbacks, right? Premium positions, right? So this is a guy that's going to need development. Once again, good run blocker, which I feel like in college, a lot of these guys are good run blockers, but he's still questionable as a pass blocker. So he still needs to develop there. But this is a guy that's athletic, can come in, you could develop him the right way. And maybe he finds a spot on the roster, especially when you get to these rounds. These are just best player available. And obviously, when you look at Robert Scott Jr. Out of Florida State, this would be the best player available for the Chicago Bears to take at this point of the draft. Moving on with another round 6 pick number 184. After Chicago Bears selecting edge rusher Grayson Murphy out of UCLA. He's 6'3", 262 pounds. And when you look at Murphy, he combines excellent power with initial quickness. He has good flexibility and keeps his hands active. He has a quick first step and good burst to finish plays. And this is what I like. And this is what really attracted me to Murphy when I was doing my prep for this podcast. And this is what Eberflus will like as well. Murphy wins with all-out hustle and effort. This, to me, and I put this in my notes, this is a Eberflus type guy, and I feel that he will contribute in the NFL. We all know that Eberflus is an effort guy. Effort. So this is an Eberflus type of guy. Like I said, you can never have enough edge rushers, right? This is a position that struggled getting after the quarterback last season for the Chicago Bears, and it's a position that needs to be upgraded. So the more edge rushers that can come in and contribute, the better. So I really like this pick for the Chicago Bears. Grayson Murphy out of UCLA with round 6, pick 184. In round 7, the final pick for the Chicago Bears, pick 192, out of the Chicago Bears selecting another linebacker in Muhammad Diabate out of Utah. Muhammad is a rangy and athletic linebacker that can work sideline to sideline and close distance in a hurry. This is a guy that plays physical and fast. He can improve in coverage, but can develop into a stud. Once again, bring in this guy, probably play special teams, maybe play here and there reps on the defense side of the football for the linebacker room in Chicago. Obviously, when you look at the linebacker room for Chicago, this is going to be one of the more competitive rooms when you look at there. So there's no person on the team besides maybe Jack Sanborn and Nicholas Morrow that's guaranteed to have a starting job. So it's going to be competitive to get playing time as a linebacker in Chicago. But this is a guy that you can bring in, develop the right way, and I think he has potential to be a stud in the NFL. So that is my 2023 NFL draft. Obviously, when we look back at the results, and I'll put it on the screen right now, I took Will Anderson Jr., Jordan Addison, Andrew Voorhees, Manuel Forbes, John Michael Schmitz, Zay Flowers, Jalen Kenelon, Owen Popoe, Robert Scott Jr., Grayson Murphy, Muhammad Diabate, I also added a 2024 second round pick via the Colts, and DeForest Buckner via the Colts as well. So absolutely a massive haul. A bunch of guys that can come in and contribute right away. And that's the big thing, especially when you're rebuilding. You're going to have a lot of young guys that are going to need to develop, but you also need to get some guys that can come in and help this football team win some football games right away. And I feel like I did that with guys like Will Anderson Jr., Jordan Addison, and Andrew Voorhees, right? These are guys that I feel, maybe even Zay Flowers, guys that can come in and contribute right away for the Chicago Bears. How do you guys feel about my NFL draft results? Let me know down below in the comment section. Let me know who you guys would want the Chicago Bears to pick in the 2023 NFL draft. So Bears fans, that is my 2023 mock offseason. Obviously, I know it was long, but obviously this is going to be a fun offseason for the Chicago Bears. Ryan Poles obviously knows that he has a lot of work to do to continue building this football team, building around Justin Fields, building around a lot of the young pieces that the Chicago Bears have. But just like Coach Eberflus has said before, the foundation is laid. Now it's time to build the walls and build the roof, right, on this foundations that they laid this season. And I feel like with the resources that the Chicago Bears have, with the resources that Ryan Poles has, he's going to be able to build this team and make this football team a whole lot better this offseason. So I'm excited to go along for the ride. But before I let you guys go, overall, how do you guys feel about my 2023 Chicago Bears mock offseason? Let me know down below in the comment section. Like always, I will be here all offseason long, giving you guys every bit of news, every move that the Chicago Bears make to make the Chicago Bears football team better. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Kick on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Kick on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic.